In this video, we will be making a front fly zipper. For this demo, you'll need your pants, skirt, whatever you put in your fly zipper on. You'll need a fly underlay, one fly underlay, and then two fly facings. You're going to need fusible interfacing for the two facing pieces. You also need a piece of fusible for the fly underlay. And you can go ahead and apply your interfacing to the wrong side of the underlay. You can apply it to the wrong sides of your fly facing. Okay, you're going to go ahead and apply this. All right, so once that's applied, you're going to want to fold this in half, wrong sides together on that. Just press it. I usually serge the bottom part here just so it doesn't fray. And then you're going to want to sew your fly facing together. You're going to sew this together with the 1/4 inch seam allowance, just right around along the curved side, just the curved side. I'm going to move over to the sewing machine and we'll get started. Okay, first thing I'm doing, just sewing that facing together, right sides together, 1/4 inch seam allowance, just down the curved side. All right, once that's done, you're going to flip this and press it. Okay, next up, I'm going to take my two pants or skirt, whatever your project piece is. I'm going to lay them right sides together, and I'm just going to stitch my seam allowance this is where my zipper is going to end. So I just want to stitch the rest of this J-curve here. And I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but you use whatever your pattern calls for. All right, now after I stitch that, I just want to clip in towards the seam allowance. I'm just clipping that right where my notch is. Just go all the way in and get as close to the seam allowance as you can. Okay, so now I've got my pants sewn together below my crotch. And then the next thing I want to do, I want to take that underlay. That's the single piece that I folded at the very beginning. I'm going to lay the raw edges together on my pants piece, and I'm going to sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I want that to be less than the seam allowance of my pants, so 1/4 inch seam allowance. And this, I'm laying it down on, it's, if I'm looking at it, it's the left-hand side of the fabric or the pants, but actually in any kind of pattern, it would refer to it as the right side of the pants. This front fly is going to end up having an opening to the right side. So that I start with the right side, laying the underlay on the right side. And let's see. I just want to start sewing 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down. And I'm just going down to that little notch that I made in my fabric. Okay, so after I get that sewn on, I want to press my seam allowance towards the facing. I'll flip this over, and then I'm going to just top stitch along this folded edge. I just basically want to sew down that seam allowance to the facing. And then just go all the way to the bottom of that facing piece. Next up, we'll be moving over to the opposite side. So I'm just going to fold this out of the way, moving to what is actually called the left-hand side of the pants or skirt, whatever it is you're working on. Now, you're going to pin your zipper down. You want it face down on the, right sides together on the pants project. And then I'm just going to sandwich that in between my pants and my fly shield. All right, I'm going to pin that in place. Okay, if you'll notice, I've switched to a skinny zipper foot. When I pin this in place, I'm going to want to sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I don't want my zipper edge to be right up against the raw edge, right? Because if I sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance there, I'm going to be sewing right in the middle of the zipper, and we don't want that. So I'm going to come out a little bit so that this line on my zipper lays at about the 1/2 inch mark. So it's probably about 1/8 to almost 1/4 of an inch out from the raw edge, and then I'll pin it in place with my fly shield on top. Okay, once you've got that pinned together, or clipped, I use clips, you're going to sew that with about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, once you've got that sewn on, you want to flip it open, and you're just going to edge stitch along the folded edge right next to that zipper. All right, next thing, you want to just pin the fly facing just right on top, like it would look when it's closed. Pin that in place. Oops. Make sure you don't have any puckers down here, right? That's where you always get them, just right down here where the two pieces meet. Have a lot of layers to go through, but you want to make sure your facing is right on the edge of your fabric. All right. Okay, once I've got that all pinned in place, I want to grab the fly shield. That's the one with the nice finished edge, and I want to pull that out of the way. I'm going to fold that back. Now I'm going to flip this pin side over. Flip the whole thing over. You should be looking at the back of the zipper now. And you're sewing the zipper to the fly facing, okay, just as it's laying. And you really want to get right on top. This is the hard part because you've got your zipper in the way. Now don't take your pins out just yet, okay? Now you want to come back and you want to sew around. Again, fold the shield out of the way, and you're just sewing around the top here, doing some top stitching. But I want to make sure it's nice, it looks really nice. So I'm going to grab my ruler and probably my fly shield pattern piece. Okay, so I'm just going to mark exactly where I want that fly to lay. I'm going to go probably about 1 inch away from my folded edge. Kind of hard to get in there and really get a good measurement, but you know, you just want to throw down some guides. And I'll use my pattern piece as just a little guide for the bottom. All right, so make sure your fly shield is out of the way still. I'll actually probably start from the bottom here. And I'm going to start from about a 1/2 inch away from the bottom, from that folded edge. Because I'm going to come back and do that with the fly shield laying down. Because I want to stitch all 3 together at that point. All right, now I'm going to take all my pins out. I want to lay that fly shield back down. So this is exactly how it would lay on the garment. Now I'm just going to sew through all the pieces and just connect the end of that. Right, and that keeps everything very secure at the bottom of your zipper. So, because that's really the stress point of your zipper. You want to make sure that's secure. Okay, so just check it. Make sure everything works. So you've got a nice, perfect fly zipper. And if you wanted this to open on the other side, you would start it on the other side and just do the same process, but on the opposite side.